Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time this evening to come and spend it with us. I hope this will be of some benefit to you. It's something that I think is a lot of fun and really important to genealogy. And maybe I can share a few ideas with you. Sound okay? Yes. We'll get all wired up here. We were doing okay till I dropped one of them. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. As you know, in order to be successful at genealogy, you have to be able to find a person at a certain place at a certain point in time, and that's not always so easy. But maps help us achieve a couple of those things. We can find a person in a place, hopefully, and at a point in time we can see where and how and where they lived and perhaps even how they moved around. I want to show you a couple of places. Now, Brother Tanner last week, James Tanner, shared a lot of resources on the internet with us. And a couple of those that he shared are really, really important websites for you that you can go to and make use of, and they're free. One of those is oldmapsonline.org. Now, you'll want to take notes, and I'll try to go slow enough that you can keep up. If I skip over something and you've missed it, raise your hand and let me know. And if you have questions, be sure and let me know, because we'd like to make this such that you can learn as we go. But oldmapsonline.org is a site that's part of the Newberry Library, James Ramsey Map Collection, and it's an awesome site in that it has tremendous amount of information. I'm going to show you a few. I'll go ahead and log in and show you how to navigate around it. Now, I ran into an issue, quite a few issues actually over the years, where I've tried to figure out where my ancestors lived, and I had some information, and some of it wasn't. Some of it was confusing. Some of it would contradict itself, and so you'd have to go to maps to figure out where to find what you need. Now, this site here, it's picked up us right here in the valley in Arizona, and what it's got, you can see this. This is this big square around the valley here because I haven't entered anything in. And then down here, it's also got another window that'll give you an idea of where we're at in relation to the surrounding areas. You notice that this changed a little bit. It's because my mouse had hit the side of this map. That's kind of a neat thing about this site. If I come over and hover over this map, it identifies over here on the left what area the map encompasses. So if you know where it is you want to find a map for, you can hover over the maps, and I see that this one works for this area I want if I was going to North Scottsdale. But let's travel a little further away. I have half my family's from the north and half my family's from the south. I have a Taylor line, major Taylor line in the north and a major Taylor line in the south. And I suppose that's why I have so many conflicting personalities. But been doing a lot of research in Alabama, and some of my presentations I share that information. If it's getting boring for you, I apologize. My oldest, it's a brick wall that I have with Dave Taylor in northwestern part of Alabama, and so quite a few times I've gone to find maps to see exactly where he lived, see what the situation was, because some of his address has changed, and I couldn't figure out. He must have moved around a little bit. As it turned out, the county and the cities and so forth, as they grew, the counties changed, and he never moved his entire life. And that helped me to understand it a little bit. But You can see from this map that's up here that it's highlighted. We've got this box around this area. I know that it'll work for this area that I want to go to. But it also gives you an idea of the year. Now see, here's 1796. This is the Tennessee lately, the Southwestern Territory. That's kind of funny when you think about that being the Southwestern Territory, but 1796 it was. Also, another little feature up here that you'll probably enjoy, or it's helpful to use, is a time slide. They have thousands and thousands of maps here, and some of them antique and some of them modern. So they've got this little filter up here, and I want to filter this on down to, let's go to 1900s, and I'll make it 1740. There wasn't many people living there before that in this part of Alabama. And by doing that, it also gives me the maps that are available for that time period. As you can see, as I hover over these maps, it bounces around. Where I want to go is right here to Russellville and this area, so I can select the map for that area. Some of these are, and we'll click on some of these. This is an interesting map. What it does, this is a collection, and you can see here it says the Dave Rumsey Map Collection. Well, there are also other collections inside this entire site, and so we'll have different forms of maps and map viewers that come up, and hopefully we'll see a few of those tonight and give you an idea how to use them. It always has more than one way to access the map. You can click on the map itself or click up here under View This Map. This download, don't be deceived, this is just trying to download a PDF reader. So it's an advertisement, and they get paid for every time somebody opens this window up. But there, click on the, keep your mouse on the map and stick to that. It has zoom capabilities, which are nice. This is Alabama in 1824. Over here it has also an index of what's going on. This is the map of the country belonging to the Cherokees and the Creek Indians in 1824. What I found interesting in looking at some of these, it's hard sometimes at this point to figure out where you're at. But I can come up here. I can see this right here is the state border with Tennessee and Alabama, and so I'm over on the eastern side. And the area that I want to get to is over here. So in 1824, there wasn't a whole lot known about what was going on with my family. And yet, I'm fairly confident that they were living here at that point in time. I know from some other maps I've looked at that Muscle Shoals is right, and Tuscumbia is right here, and Russellville is right about here, and my family had property that was in here. So this map won't be too much help to me, but it does give me a perspective on what happened over a very short period of time. Now the way to get rid of this is just to close this little map and then close this, and it takes you right back to the main page. Now here's another one for 1815, and that's also the eastern portion of Alabama. But as we look through some of these, we've got there's a couple that are really good. You can see this one's just out of, I want this area here. Sorry, I've moved my map. So I've got to kind of watch where it is I'm going with the maps I want. Another thing we can do, see, now I've just gone down and used the map and the mouse to find this area. But I can come right up here and I can type in, say, well, actually I was going to type in Russellville, but I'm going to type in Franklin County. And then it will, with a combination of that and this, it'll bring areas. Here's Franklin County right here. And as I start to look at some of these maps, here's United States War Department. And not exactly, I don't think that one's going to help me too much, but map of the country belonging to the Cherokee and Creek Indians, we looked at that. The seat of war among the Creek Indians, 1815. I can tell there's something going on here. We've got a lot of Indians living in this territory. Look at this. We'll look at this one here. Let's look at this one. This is 1821, and Lucas Fielding. Having done this a little bit, become familiar with some of the different publishers, and some are better maps than others. Lucas Fielding. Let me show you this. You can see this is part of an atlas. You can see there's quite a few pages here. And so they'd put together groups of maps, and then they're hand painted, and then they've been digitized for us to use. But nice thing is I can just use my wheel, and I can wheel right in, and grab the map and pull it around. Notice a couple interesting things. Here's Franklin County in 1823. Now the other map was right at the same time period, and it ended right here, if you remember. This one has a little more detail, but the reason it did is because this was Chickasaw land. This was part of their reservation, and this area wasn't surveyed other than some of the traders knew where the rivers were and so forth. Also know something interesting is that there's these grids on here. These become important for understanding how maps work and how land was sold. And it's necessary to understand a little bit about history. We had the War of 1812, and we fought the British, and the Indians had teamed up with the British, and so we fought both the British and the Indians. And in winning the war, the Indians were probably the biggest losers. The British didn't really have possession of the property. They had claimed it. They weren't able to hold it, and that's why they lost it. But the Indians lived there, and yet they were persecuted and removed and chased out of their lands. You can see here the American government came in 1820, decided they're going to sell some of this land. And so they surveyed it, and they formed a type of surveying system called townships and ranges. These numbers here correspond with the numbers of the township and then the ranges, and we see the numbers over here for the ranges. And I hope I got that right. I think I do, but could have them reversed. But I know from land records that my ancestor, Dave Taylor, owned property in Township 12, Range 6, and there's Township 12 right here. And if then I look over here to Range 6, and come over here, and he had property right here in this. This is the township. And he had a portion of this section that was right here about where this E is in Russellville. Now, also notice that that's really close to the reservation. And so it brings a few questions to my mind. There's always been a family rumor that his wife was an Indian. We have pictures, and she does look like she could be Indian, but yet I don't know. And as a genealogist, I'm a skeptic until I can see it and I can prove it. I'm not going to say she's an Indian or she's not, but it looks like it's possible. In some of the other some of the other old maps, we can see where they live is one of the areas that they'd have this part of the Chickasaw reservation was for the main tribe. Other parts out in here were for some of the half-breed tribes. And they had actual camps and areas where they gathered the people that weren't all full Indian. I'm not sure why they did that, but some of the maps even label it little properties around here or communities around here as half-breed tribe. just an interesting note and another note as far as I go for my family's ancestry. Yes. It's a good question. This question was, what's the scale of those grids? And that does help make this map more viewable. These township ranges, these townships here, are 36 square miles. So you got 6 miles by 6 miles, and then you have 36 sections within it, which are one square miles. And so as things unfolded and as I found more information, I was able to determine, well, hey, I'm not very far from the Tennessee border, and that comes into play. And then I found who I think are ancestors that were from Tennessee. Dave Taylor said he was born in Tennessee, but spent almost his whole life right here. Well, that's only, it could have been 50 miles away is where they lived and migrated here. And it also helps you to see, well, over to Huntsville, that's 6 times 12, and you can figure out how many miles it is and how far it is to the Mississippi border as well. So, as it turned out, let's see, what can I show you here? Let's go look at. Last night I was in the library, and the brother here was looking at the gazetteers and the map file, and he wasn't actually scratching his head, but I could tell the wheels were spinning, and he was wondering, what do I do with this? And I went over and talked to him, and he was looking for some maps on Missouri and wanted to know how to find some. So we sat down and I showed him some of these sites, and we went over to Missouri, and I'll take you over and let's go look at some of the things that we found for him. So you'd come back out to the main page, and then I think we were looking for Livingston County? So Livingston, Missouri, and there was some question in his mind because Livingston didn't exist till at a certain point, but he had some information about family being from there. And as you look at this, it shows Chillicothe. I guess that's how you'd say that. Chillicothe. And so here is, we're going to want to try to find where Livingston was. And so let's find, what was the time period again? Okay, in 1837. I think I've lost let's go back here to. Okay. And it gives us Kansas or something. I got to get back over to move it back into the window. Here's a map of Illinois and Missouri in 1824. Let's have a look. Now, one of the problems with finding our ancestors is, as we talked about, is sometimes the county's changed. Well, that becomes the problem here. We've got in 1824. This is Chariton, and as it turns out, portions of Chariton were taken and made into Livingston. Livingston comes out somewhere in here, but we didn't know that when we first started. And so we can get a feel for what it is in 1824. We can then come on over and find a map and maybe go a little later and see what's up. So we come to 57. And there's no nodding off while the program is loading here. There are some programs too that'll help us see how counties were formed, and we're going to go there next and have a look at that. This is taking longer than usual. I guess the thing to point out is we were able to go back and forth. And then we were able to figure out that Livingston County didn't even get incorporated until 1865, I think it was, or in that 37. And so I've done so many of these, I get everything confused. But 1837, and then we were able to go in and we were able to find where his ancestors had property. This isn't loading up this particular map. That's right. He had said that he was a part of his family were the mobs that chased the Mormons out, and the other part were the Mormons. Yes. Yeah, it'll filter out. The question was, how does the search function work with the date slide? And it actually works. It'll restrict the dates. So I won't be able to pick up any maps that are previous to 1675 or that are after 1905. And so, because sometimes we'll get several hundred maps in here, and so it'll restrict them to that date period, which is helpful sometimes. Yeah, the question was if I push the pointers together, it would have a more narrow range and a more refined map selection. You can see that it's starting to do that. Let's push this up to 18. So we're probably at 1850 here, 1830s, and I noticed that some of these were moving. So we come into 1850 here, and we should be able to go find Livingston and see where that existed. This one you also notice, in that time period, they incorporated this township and ranges grid system on here because people were using that to buy properties, and that was a big thing for the government to earn money to help reimburse them for the War of 1812 and some of the expansion that they had. You can see here that Sheridan was where it originally started out, and then they formed Livingston. It was huge, and we were then able to figure out that this is where his ancestor came from. And there would then be, we can go find maps on Livingston County and get even more insight. One of the things I discovered, I'll show you, I have my ancestral tree on Ancestry.com. And here's a common problem I'll find. I've had this record for many years. And as I'm looking at it, it shows that this Joseph Harrison Tippett was born in Lewis, Essex, New York, which is fine. So then I'm doing, and I've been able to research him, and then I'm doing research on his father, Joseph. Well, his father died in Lewis, Essex, New York, but he was born in Methuen, Essex, Massachusetts. All of a sudden, I get a little suspicious. I mean, something could be wrong here. And it's even worse if you look at the historical hints that it gave me. If you look at these, shows Joseph Tippett, 1830. He resided in Essex, New York. Well, then he's buried, this Joseph is buried in Massachusetts. This Joseph, he's married in New York. And I've got these, I think they're two different people. Obviously they're two different people because there's two grave sites. And one served in the War of 1812. And one was actually born right here in Massachusetts in Methuen. So you can see how the mistake can come into play. Somebody picking up information and not having all of it. Well, I decided to pull out the maps and go see if I could figure out what was going on. We won't solve the whole problem here tonight, but we will find something very interesting. Now, Methuen, Massachusetts comes up first. Now, there is a Methuen, New York. Let's see if I have to go to Essex, perhaps. Yeah, it is indexed in a contemporary name. Well, look at even it's got the zip code here. And so at this point, I'm not sure which one it is. So I click on Essex, New York, and I've adjusted because of his birth date and so forth. Let's put this around 1700, and right in here, and then it brings up on the right-hand side here some of the maps that are available. And we can see that it's somewhere in New York here. We start to look through towns and harbors in 1747. Maps of the Hudson. Let's see, it's 1820. This isn't maybe something I want. I want something more. Let's go. Oh, I know. I ended up going to Lewis, Essex, if I could spell it right. Now I notice it's got maps of Vermont and some of the lakes, and here's Essex County in 1829. Now this one, it has the counties. Here it's got township grids. Now, if you notice, there's quite a difference from the very orderly and strict grid system that was surveyed in the western states, and that's because this survey system was put together the same way. The colonial states, they took and used the same type of surveying system that the English had. And you can see it's quite a bit different from what we have on the other 37 states. They're all orderly and more orderly and laid out differently. But you can still make sense out of this, and there's some interesting things going on here, but I was able to find, it'll show the township and the parts of town. It'll also, here's Lewis. Let's see if I can. So this is Essex County, and it has these different townships in it. Some of them are very odd shaped, but they're shaped how they were inhabited, and then politics played a part in shaping some of these over time. So this helps me understand a little bit that there was a Lewis, Essex, New York, but I was still a little suspicious, so I went back to my Methuen theory as I was working on for Methuen, Massachusetts. Here's one for 1846. I thought, well, maybe I can see what it looked like in 1846, and we can get some idea of what, maybe there are some hints to where they may have lived. This is a viewer that's a little different, and I found that if I take and make it full size, I have a harder time moving around in it. So the 3/4 size seems to work really well, and it has the ability to, to zoom in. Then all of a sudden, I noticed something incredibly fascinating. Look at this. this map and quite a few of the maps of this period, they showed the town, they showed the streets, the lakes, the ponds, the streams. They also showed where the families lived. So I thought, oh, hot dog, I'm going to find where the Tippets lived in Methuen. Well, as it turns out, they had headed west and weren't here in 1846. But if I'd been looking for Samuel Griffin, it would be really exciting because right here I'd know that his farmhouse was right here on this road, and then I could then go and find it on Google Earth. And so there's some really neat hints and clues out there. So don't be afraid to go look through the maps and try to find more. Try to educate yourself on where your ancestors lived. As I looked through this, it was interesting to me. I could see that this is the down next to the river, and this is where the mills were, and they've got a forge and a machine shop, a foundry and machine shop, and these are the old warehouses where they kept materials as for storage for shipping. And you can also see it. There are dots down here. Well, these are where some of the laborers worked in some of their houses. They rented probably, and these probably were even boarding houses and so forth. The major homeowners, property owners, are listed on the map. Let's go to another place I want to share with you, and it's related to this site, but we're going to go to the Newberry Library itself. And so you would type in this Newberry Library, or yes, I have a question?
The question is, can you tell from the title or description whether the map listed land owner name?
Sometimes. Yeah, the question was, can you tell from the map description whether it includes landowner names? And the answer is sometimes. And sometimes down the lower left corner, as we were looking for those maps, over down in here it would give a description of the map, and sometimes it would say that it was landowners, but more often than not it doesn't. It was just understood in that period of time. You can see I've got the bad link here. Let me get to. We'll Google Newberry. Oh, it's just newberry.org. I'm sorry. So for your notes, it's newberry.org. The Newberry is a privately owned and funded library, a research library in Chicago. And they started in 1887, and they have an incredible amount of information for anybody that's a genealogist doing genealogy work. It is a must-visit site. You could make this one of your daily sites to visit as well. They have a collection of blogs, and I'll quickly go through that and show you what's available here, and then we'll get on to some of the interesting map stuff. As you look through it, you can see that there's, up here, this is one of the areas we'll go to research, and we're going to end up going into digital resources, and there's a lot of information we use there. But there's also research centers and research projects. There's catalogs. They have programs that go on, and they have programs for teachers all across for Chicago, but I believe it's used by teachers across the country. They have resources for the classroom. You've got resources for Native American information and collections, as well as Chicago genealogies and histories. These are particularly interesting. The Chicago and the Midwest, these are a collection of maps and materials and books that relate to the growth of that area. And a lot of people have ancestors that come from the Chicago area or Illinois. You get into maps, travel, and exploration. This is where we'll go. You can see they've got genealogy and local history. That they have a pretty good collection of the genealogies that were from that area, and so that'd be a great resource for you. And even the medieval periods, they have a collection of books and so forth, but they even have some genealogies from the kings and some of the families of Europe. As you go through here, you can see here we got American Indian Studies. They have genealogy programs that are connected to this. They have a great collection of pictures too, which is fascinating. And there's a genealogy and local history again, and manuscripts, and just really a neat collection. If we go into genealogy and local history, we can see they've got. And one of the things that I found interesting is as I click on this, I usually have to click twice to get where I want to go. So keep that in mind. If you click and you don't see what you want, look for the tab again. These are different programs. You can see they've got the genealogies here and the local histories and periodicals, and they have published all of their Chicago genealogy journals, and they're all online and free. As we get to, let's see, we'll go to the digital resources here. And see, like I said, I punched that, and then I've got to punch it again to get my digital resources. And then here, it's got listed some of all the things that are available online for us to use. And with this is American West collection, and that affects most of our genealogies. We've got things that have to do with the West being populated and colonized, and they've got a great collection of interesting things here. This is where we want to go here in a minute, but I want to show you they've even got things like Aztecs and making of colonial Mexico. So just because it's from Chicago doesn't mean it sticks to that. Border troubles in the War of 1812, I thought that was interesting. Then they've got Chicago ancestors, Chicago genealogists. Let's see, digital collections for the classroom. This is what I was talking about for the schools, and there's everywhere west. So then they've got images and things about expansion, and you never know what you might find. Here's the Great Lakes digital collection. This is a collection of old maps of the Great Lakes, and which may pertain to those of you from Canada or that part of the country. You can see it's got things about Indians and their internet archive, and this is an awesome section here, the North American Indian photographs. Let me click on this and show you. I have to go twice here again. It gives me that little header, and then it brings me into the collection. You come over here and you browse the collection. Look at all these pictures. There are over 500 pictures of Indians and Indian life. And if your ancestor was Charles Picotte, or Picotte, I'm not sure, he was a half-breed with the Yankton Dakotas. There's a picture of him for your mantle. And they have where known, they have listed who they were and what they were, what tribes. But I wanted to go up here. Let's see. I think that was. Go up here to this one that's really awesome for genealogists. And that's right here. It's the Atlas of Historical County Boundaries. A lot of you are familiar with Animap, and what's the other one that Wayne uses? This is one for Europe as well, but this one, we're going to have to click it twice here. But as I click on it, I'm thinking I'll click right here and I'll get to the maps, but this just brings up Oklahoma, so you have to click this right here again. And then what it does is it gives you an interactive map of the United States. And if we wanted to go to Alabama, let's say, we'd click on Alabama. Before we go there, I'm going to show you what it has in here. These are several different slideshows they have available. They say some are 30 seconds and some are 3 minutes. But they'll show the formation. This one here is 30 seconds. It shows the historical county boundaries and how they were formed in 30 seconds. Oops, we just got filtered out. Let's see if it'll allow us to look at this one. No. We have a filter on here that restricts the images that can be seen at the Family History Library to make sure that they're appropriate, and it's given us trouble here. Well, it's a little slideshow, and it shows in time how the counties and states were formed. Hopefully this will work here. Let's go to Alabama. What happens is it takes me to Alabama, shows me a current list of the state, or a picture of the state with all the counties. And then I've also got an interactive map here. And another thing that will come to is look at this index of the counties. If we come to the interactive map, it shows in a larger context where Alabama is here in the upper left. But here it shows Alabama. These white lines in the tan background are today's current county outlines. These small black lines are the county outlines that existed as of March 3rd, 1817. And so this is where this gets fun, is you can use this to pick out any point in time and see what the counties were for Alabama or any other state. And so I'm going to leave March 3rd there. We're going to play with this, and we'll go to 1824. That was the date of one of the maps. Keep in mind, you have to push the refresh map button every time. And I was getting frustrated because it wasn't working right until I read the instructions. Hit the refresh button every time. Now I can see here that Franklin existed right here. Franklin County in 1824, and we've got a few others. But I've got these big spaces here that they say NCA 9, NCA 7. These were, and over here 6. These were where the Indian tribes, their reservations were. And you can see these were different reservations that extended into Alabama. Alabama was first colonized up in here, and slowly, and then down here, and then slowly squeezed in between the Indians and then pushed them out. Now if we come over here to 1830, which is where I know my ancestor is shown in the census record. And I come to see it shifted a little bit. The Indians reservation is still here. These are starting to get, this part of the reservation got cut up and became counties. So we've still got a little bit. And then as we move into 1840s, to try to follow the census records. See, it's big changes. The Indians were moved out. That was a period where we've got the Trail of Tears that went, part of it went up through here into Oklahoma. They were moved out of here this direction. Some of them moved down into Florida. You can see that there aren't any more tribal areas in Alabama, but there were still Indians that stayed behind and lived here. You can see that Franklin's quite large here, and I can see this line here going through it, which makes me wonder which one's what's what. Well, it turns out this is Colbert County now, and Franklin here, which they were eventually split. So you could take this, and it's a great tool, and use it to see how things changed and shifted over time. After the war, let's say 70, there were a few more changes made, and that's where Franklin and Colbert was taken out of Franklin, and my ancestors' property was right here on this line here. But the county records, the records for that county are all stored in Colbert County. That took a while to figure out. These records here, the courthouse was burned in 1890. They no longer exist, and so everything after that ended up here in Colbert. Now, you can do the same thing for any of those, any states that we have. Now, another thing you can do is you come back here and click on this index, and you can come down to the county you want. I was looking for. And it gives you this indexed information on what happened. Franklin was created in 1818. And then it goes through their history. In 1867, after the war, Franklin lost half of it to Colbert County. And as you read it, there's politics involved and money, and as in most of these things. But the final changes, they gained a little bit in 1895, and it's remained the same. And it gives you information on Colbert County as well, so it's a great tool. And a great resource. Any questions on this program? And the Newberry. I'd encourage all of you to take some time and go visit the Newberry library site. I spent some time in here. Let's see if I can find it again. It was on the genealogy services. Let's go to research centers. Now I can't. So you can see that there's a military month and genealogy and local history. Let's go here, and there's a section of blogs, catalogs, guides. Genealogy guides and research tools. You can see here they've got ethnic guides. So if this concerns one of your families, your family heritage, you can go here, and here's some of the state guides. We've got incredible resources here. The other thing I'd like to take you to and share with you is another cool program that's in here. So if we come back to this, go back to the digital resources, hit it twice, and come back to this historical collection here. And we're going to pick, let's pick Kansas, Colorado. And then it's got the interactive map, the index of counties and so forth, and the historical commentary. But down here it has some additional programs. And if you hit this download for KMZ file for use with Google Earth, it pulls up a file that allows us to overlay the county formation maps onto Google Earth. And so I've got Google Earth open and sitting right here. And I just clicked that, and it downloaded Alabama or Colorado's file. And you just click on it and unzip it, and it's opening up. Let's see if and it automatically opens up Google Earth. Now you may wonder what's going on with all that. Well, these are all, now it's showing, we've got some layers going on here, and we don't have to have all of them. Let me get rid of some of these, the photos, maybe the places. Borders and labels. We could get rid of borders for now. And then come up to the county names. Make this easy to read. We could take out the county names. And what's happened is Colorado was part of different territories over periods of time, and that's what it's showing here. And then the way you identify the time period you want is with this little slider bar. You can see 1804 is really when Colorado became a territory, I believe. As I start moving that slider bar, you can see that we get it right around in here in 1872. This says May of 1872, but I'm not sure that's real accurate because of that slider bar function. But all of a sudden, we've got Colorado and the counties right here overlaid on Google Earth, and we can do some amazing things with it. You can come zoom on down in. You can see exactly where the counties are. You can then use Google Earth as you want to, and you can add the borders and roads. You can start to get a feel for different counties, you know, what's going on within those counties, and you can then use this bar here to see how it's grown, the things that it's done over the years. So that's a great way to use that tool on Google Earth and sort of see how you can perhaps use this. You could then take this image, and if you wanted, you could use OpenView or any type of an editor and cut this out, paste it as a JPEG into a genealogy program as a map and so forth. Okay, so we're going to move on now. I want to save that. Take it to one last place. I think what we'll do is, those of you that, some of you might use Google a lot as a search engine. I like to. I think that it's probably the most powerful, the best. And what's the point of messing around with others if you use the best? But if you want to do a Google search, you can just type in Google, and you'll get their homepage. And up here, you'll see you have things we can search. You get images, maps, and so forth. This is what we want right here, and that's Google Maps. And this is an incredible resource. And it's free. And what I want to do tonight is I want to take and do a migration map, or show you how to make a migration map for your family, your ancestors. Now, what you need to do is you have the ability to register for Google Maps, and so you register, and then afterwards you'll have this sign-in right here, and you type in your email. Oh, I did change it. So I'm now signed into my Google Maps, and I want to show you a couple things. One of these is this Experience Maps GL. Take some time and try this. They've got they experiment, and they have map labs, and so they're working on things constantly. But this is it's another part of that. We've got the Google Maps where they've gone all over the world. You can and they've filmed all the roads and street addresses and so forth. You can take this, and where would we like to go? Let's go up to New York. And all you have to do is just start clicking, or you can roll your mouse. I've never been to see if we can find Fulton Landing, New York. And so you find the place that your ancestors lived. And then what you do is come over here, and there's a peg man, they call him, right here, and you grab the peg man with your mouse. And when you do that, then there will be a blue line that's formed. You'll see what lines have been photographed, what roads, and they're shown up as that blue line. You bring that little green turf that's under peg man and put it on the street, and it takes you right down in there. And now I can see, well, this is Lakeshore Drive. Actually, it's 4976 Lakeshore Drive in Bolton, New York. Now, here's how this functions. We've got this little white dot here. You need to push that, and that'll take us where we want to go. If we want to go and see some of these side images, then we put it up here on the wall and hit it, and it will turn us so that we can see where our family lived. This is our ancestral home here. Now the other thing you can do is use this and travel down the road. So you click on that this little white thing here and click, and it takes you on down the road. And come over here, we can look and see. Look at this beautiful area. You can use this to hunt out cemeteries. Now, you can't get into the cemetery because these images are all taken from the road, but you can locate and actually travel where you want to go before you make the trip. And you can also, I've done this, it's been fun to go to Wales, where my ancestors were, and see the towns they lived in and the little streets and so forth. So another fun thing that you can use. Now, going out of there, I'm going to go to My Places, and these are this is part of Google Maps for me that I've signed into. And if you'll notice up here, it has maps and starred. You can put places that you travel to or you're interested in on maps anywhere in the country, and it'll remember them. And then you can actually make maps and travel to and fro. Get directions and distances and so forth. I've created some maps, and I want to show you tonight how to do this. I just clicked on it, and it's opening. Well, maybe it's already open. Let's create a map. What we're going to do is you'd come in here and you'd type in, I'm going to type a migration map for Pace family. I'll also title it Pace's Travel. You put whatever you want on it. And I'm going to work through this kind of quickly, but I want to give you some ideas of how to use this. Now, I'm going to zoom back up into space, and I've worked on this over the years, and so I know a little bit about where they came from, where the travels and the migration of the Paces. And so I'm going to show you how to use this. We're going to go and I'm going to save it. All right. Oh, here it is. Okay, so right here it shows Get Advanced Features with Maps Engine Light. You click that. And what it does is Maps Engine Light is a beta program that they're working on. And we're going to create the new map. And it gives us the United States right here. We can go anywhere in the world. And it gives us a couple of really simple functions here. And I happen to know that my family came from a place here close to Chattanooga. And so you take this up here. Here's these little identity markers, little balloons that you see on the Google Maps. You click that, and it gives you a hash mark and bring it over to where you want it. Now you can zoom in, but you need to do that before. But I'm just going to put it right here. And this is the Pace homestead. And identify, we won't identify all of them, but and that's our starting point here. Now, as I know that the Pace family, what got them going and moving was there were some Mormon missionaries who came into this area and taught them about the Mormon church, and they embraced it, and then they took the family and traveled to Illinois, to Nauvoo, where they wanted to live with the Latter-day Saints. And so what we can do here is I'm going to go and find Nauvoo. I know it's above Quincy. Let it download. There's Hamilton, and here's Nauvoo. So I'm going to put another marker right here. And you don't have to label it at this point, but it gives us an option to do it later, just to show you how it works. And then we've got Nauvoo marked here as well. Now, what I want to do is I want to identify the trail traveled. And so we're going to go from Chattanooga up here. I'm going to use, now you can do research and figure out what trails and roads they took. I do know that starting here, they had to go through Nashville because that was the major hub. And then a lot of times the highways we have now followed the roadways, the old trails. They more than likely went through St. Louis. They could have gone up the river here or up to Springfield. I think they went this way, and there are some other roads that would connect and take us up here. Now, when you get to the point that you want to end at, you click on the line, and it will terminate it, and then click off of it, and you've got the line that they traveled. Now, I know from here that about 1844 that they were moved out of Nauvoo and pushed into Iowa. And so I can zoom in here, and if I did a little bit of research, I can figure out exactly where they were. They called it winter's quarters, but somewhere up in this area right here, they were pushed out of Nauvoo and had to move here. And I'll just call it winter's quarters. Now, then I would connect another line and click right here. We're going to come across the river all along here and connect right in there and click that dot again, terminates it. And an interesting thing happened here. Now we've got the Mexican-American War. Government asked for volunteers to go and fight in that war, and my ancestor signed up. And he volunteered as long as the Saints promised to take care of his wife and children here at Winter's Quarters, which they did. So he then makes this long journey. And what you have to do with this is you get it to where we can form the lines, but he ended up traveling all the way down here to San Diego. So click on San Diego. And they were mustered out of the Army there in San Diego. And then you can actually discover and follow the actual trail and so forth they worked. But just for time's sake, I'm going to make this really a little quicker. Their job was to come down in here, and they went through parts of Mexico, I believe. I think they came up through somewhere around like this to here. And you can, for this, you can, let's put, this was called the Mormon Battalion. And it'll identify that line as such. So one of the interesting things here, we may not get to all these, but say this line, if you hover over this line right here, it brings up one of those little paint buckets. Click on it, and it gives you the opportunity to make it whatever color you want. And that allows you to modify it. And that's not a great color because it needs to read darker. But we can have the family migration here, and I can then have the battalion in blue there. I know now that in studying his journal, they came right here's Donner Pass right here, and they came through right after that spring of that Donners were trapped here. You could just call that Donner Pass. And then I'd want to get it big enough so I can do the line. Sorry if I'm putting anybody asleep. Hang with me though, we're almost done here. So you click back on it, terminates it. And then they went to Salt Lake, so I can put another marker right here in Salt Lake. Start right here. Now, I don't believe they went up to Elko. I believe it's the north or the southern route here that takes us right into Salt Lake. You got to Salt Lake after going all this far, and then found out his family was still in Winter's Quarter in Iowa. So he and his son had to get on their horses again. Whether in San Diego they had to work to make enough money to buy a horse to get home, and then here they had to. I want to do a line, and the trail pretty much follows right like this. And then they got here. Then they had to turn around and earn enough money to buy a wagon and then take his family back. And I'd suggest when you're doing this to, even though the trail's the same, not make it the same line. And I'll show you why, because when we shrink it, you're still going to want to be able to see it. Then they got to Salt Lake City. And then Brigham Young asked them to go down to Payson and settle Payson. We'll put a marker here for Payson. Oops. And then so we'll zoom in here so we can do the line a little easier. Now, they were there in Payson for a while, and then Brigham Young asked them to go to Arizona. So, got one last leg of this journey. Now, Safford, I have to zoom in here so I can go find Safford. It's always different where I think it should be. Let's see if I can find it here. It's down. There we go, Safford down here. And they ended up in the Gila Valley and actually right here in Verdon. So okay, so the journey of their life is almost over here. You've got to be able to see both of them. or to make the connection with it. Okay, so we'll just do a straight line for this one, but I know they, well, it's not, it went like this, down through the valley here. Well, they came across Lee's Ferry. I'm not exactly sure where they went from that. But the great thing is at that point, you've got a family migration map, and you can do several things. You could take and use an editing program and create you create a JPEG of this map, and then copy this and attach it to programs. You can there's also the ability to take this map and share it. You can put it on Facebook and send it to all your family. You can copy this link. Thing that would be fun is to be able to do it so that it's still interactive, and so you could attach it to a website and have it interactive, where you click on these and it would tell you what it was and where they were. Now, you look over here, we can see that we've got things that we can do. We've got labels. If you click this, it then has the labels we put in there, and it allows you to choose colors if you want to for the different labels. That one's sitting behind that one, but let's pick, say, this one down here for Verdon. Click that. You can make it a different color. We have the ability to make the lines. If you hover over the lines here, it tells you which one it is. Or pick the paint bucket, and then you can change those. Yes. Any question?
Can I overlap this on Google Earth?
Yes. And let me show you how to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, can I overlay this on Google Earth and see the terrain? And yes, you can. Now we've got a couple things here. Make sure I come to that. I want to show you a few things here, and then we'll go there. We've got the labels. You can see that you can import Excel programs and export as an Excel program, and you can add the descriptions where it was in the Pace homestead here, the exact town. You could even do satellite coordinates, so you could find it exactly if you were going on a trip, and so forth. The other thing that's kind of fun is the style. We've got individual styles. We can do sequence. They take and do sequence colors. They've got which means it starts out with yellow and turns to green and red and so forth. Uniform colors, which is kind of boring, but go to see some of them here. You can actually take and make each color whatever color you want. They have the ability. I mean, there's all kinds of fun things, and so you can make your map however you'd like it and fit your style. Now the base map here, we'd click the base map, and this is where we can get in that Google and overlaying it, because we can come in, put it here on a satellite image, and then we can see the actual terrain that they travel. And so that makes it a fun thing. You could click on this one, for instance. It's got like one of those wall maps we had in elementary school. I believe they have topographical and even weather. This is whitewater, they call it. Dark landmass. I guess whatever floats your boat, they say. So what I hoped to do with this was to show you some of the many things that are out there and some of the powerful tools. I hope they've been of benefit. It'll be of benefit to you. Are there any questions? Yes. Old map. The question was the first program we looked at was oldmapsonline.org. Yes, it's worldwide. Now we'll quickly go back to it. Old Maps Online. it shows the entire world. And so you can go to Scandinavia and get maps over there, which we did. I was working in the library last night, and we went to Sweden. So then you come in and click on it, and you get the area you want to go to. Stabby, this has a wide open time period, but then we've got maps 1922, 1814. Take us right to Sweden and Norway in 1814 and what they look like. So it's a really neat resource, and here you can then see the little townships. That's what we were using it for. We were trying to find where this person's family came from, and we were able to find exactly where it was and the way they looked at the world in 1815. That help? Any other questions? I'd like to thank all of you for coming and spend your evening with us. Thank you.